So Richard Feather Anderson is internationally recognized as a pioneer in the revival of the labyrinth in sacred geometry and French. I'm not even going to say it right. Feng Shui. And he was actually a design consultant for the creating of the first permanent labyrinth, chart style labyrinth that's at Grace Cathedral with Lauren Artress. Richard just goes way back in the labyrinth movement and has been essential in developing many of the things that we kind of now take for granted. An understanding of some understanding of sacred geometry, some understanding of how to make sacred space, about how to feel comfortable in a space. He was one of the first people who really started walking and creating labyrinths on the ground to walk in the United States, going back into the 1980s. I'm just so pleased that he's here. I've taken several workshops that he's been involved with, and I find him a great teacher and has been really helpful. He's on the faculty of Globe Sound and Consciousness Institute in the Golden State Feng Shui School, both located in San Francisco. He has a lot of published readings in the Utni Reader and the Yoga Journal and many other magazines. So I'm just going to let Richard go forward from here. I'm very interested in his presentation and how somebody with such depth of knowledge really looks at the labyrinth as a spiritual tool. I'm fascinated. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for the introduction. It's wonderful to be here with you all. And I'm told that you're, and actually I've experienced it in the few that I've sit in on of the guild presentations that you shut off with the meditation. So just have a quick little centering for us. If you just close your eyes and bring your attention to your breathing. And feel your belly expanding as you breathe in and out. And feel your chest rising and falling with each breath in and out. And let each exhale relax you into the present moment. You can even, if you are muted, take in a deep breath and let it out with a sigh. And feel your shoulders relaxing. And feel the weight of your body anchoring you into the present space. Just breathe in, relax, sigh, and breathe out. And sigh. And be still and know that only the present moment exists. I am delighted to be with you all. I was going to say tonight, whatever time it is, I saw somebody was with us from Ireland. That's what I love about Zoom. We get to share with people all over the world. It's just fabulous. So if you've been with me before, you know I have very visually rich presentations. I like talking with slideshows. So I'm going to switch over to share my screen and my keynote. So the title for this that we chose was How Labyrinths Work as Spiritual Tools. It's something I have spoken about a lot, but I want to go in a particular direction with this session. And I want to talk about how we can utilize the mysteries of the Labyrinth Path as a journey through the chakras. So we're really going to be focusing on this thing that, and I'll talk about how I got onto this, but how to use the journey through the Labyrinth Path as a journey through the chakras, which gives us a way to increase the benefits of walking the classic labyrinth and a way to shift humanity into a heart-centered way of living, and to activate your inner Holy Grail, and to use this, and all this is based on using the Seven Chakra visioning meditation. So I think all of us are familiar with a lot of the benefits of walking the labyrinths. And by the way, I'll be focusing just on the classic or ancient seven circuit labyrinth. And we know that it can calm our mental chatter and shift, unite mind, body, and spirit, and shift us into the present moment, and give us all kinds of relaxation and relaxation when we're all tensed up, or rejuvenation when we're tired. It goes either way. Or rebalance our bodies physically, relieve physical maladies like poor eyesight and all kinds of things, expand our energy fields, and inspire us with fresh insights. But what I want to talk about is what I discovered with making the connections between the seven circuits and the seven chakras is that we can go way beyond this. And so that's really what this whole talk will be about. So I want to talk about share with you the discoveries I made and help you discover this path journey through the seven chakras. We're going to, and some of that will be experiential right off the bat with some drawing exercises. Hopefully you got all those messages about the handouts and have them printed out and have your colored pencils ready and all that stuff. But if not, there will be images in the slideshow so you can at least see it. And we're going to explore the metaphysical implications of this unusual sequence through the chakras that the labyrinth gives us a clue about, gives us a hint, a nudge about. And then I also discovered the Holy Grail in the labyrinth in the path sequence. You can't see it. I'll show you how that revelation came to me. And then we'll end with another meditation, a chance to experience one of the ways to use the seven chakra meditation as a sitting meditation. And then I'll also, right before that, there will be a slide for how you can use it, which is also in your handouts when you have a physical labyrinth to walk. And then we'll share the experiences from that, and then in the evening with some Q&A. So that's where we're going. That's just what I call the score of the evening of how we're going to play together. So let's just dive right in here. I want to talk about the structure of the path, the fancy way of saying the sequence through the seven circuits, and this connection with the chakras. So, but first, let's just get familiar with what this sequence is. So if you pull out your handout, there is a sheet that has 3 different labyrinths on it, and start with and it's all the same image, but we're going to do different drawings on it. So start with the one in the upper left and add the numbers like I have here on the screen. So you start with the outermost path, farthest from the center, and call that number 1. And then just number them up to number 8 for the center. And so that's the 7 circuits plus the center, which I just kind of automatically way back started calling the 8th spot, or the 8th part of the whole sequence, right? So here's your, so once you have those numbers, once you have the numbers in the path there, what I'd like you to do is as a way to discover for yourself this sequence, if you've never done this before, is to trace your pencil or along the pathway, and starting at the mouth, the opening, and going in there. If you follow my cursor, imagine I'm following along here, and I see, oh, this first path is 3. So write down 3 at the bottom, and then go around, round, either with your finger or with a pencil. And you make a turn, you're onto another circuit, you come around, you find out, oh, that's the second path, and you write down 2. And you keep going like that. And so you write down, just do a finger labyrinth walk, and noticing which path you come to next, and then after that, and after that, and after that, and write all those down. And then you will have the sequence that the way that the ancient labyrinth leads us through the chakras, or through the 7 circuits. And you'll see right off the bat, it's not a linear sequence. I was a yoga teacher back in my 20s, and we always did the chakra meditations in a yoga class, starting at the root chakra and ending at the crown, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, going up to the 8th, the transpersonal chakra. And this doesn't do this. This is not the program that the labyrinth gives us. It gives us something completely different. And so here's what, if you finished your finger walk, this is what you should have. It shows you, or if you've never done this before, if you just discovered, we go 3, 2, 1, 4, 7, 6, 5, 8. That's the sequence we go through when walking one of the ancient or classic 7-circuit labyrinths. And so we can compare that to the chakras, which there are 7. There are many chakras, but there are 7 along the spine. There are also ones in your knees and your feet and your palms or your hand, and but the 7 spinal chakras. And if you're not familiar with chakras, they are you can think of them as energy centers or states of consciousness of a variety of different states of consciousness. And each of those, they are they are thought of in the Hindu system as wheels or lotus flowers that have different number of petals, and that gives you more about the numbers, sort of give you a qualitative understanding of the quality of each one of these states of centers of consciousness. But they also they're associated with physical glands in the body that regulate the hormonal system. And they're also, you can also think of them as various human functions, the ability to do this and that. And we'll come back to that when we come to the meditation, and I'll lead you through connecting and empowering and activating these different functions in ourselves. So that's sort of a brief, really broad, quick overview of what we're talking about if you're not familiar with the chakras. And where did this come from? So this whole idea of there being a connection between the 7 circuits and the 7 chakras was a suggestion made to me when I met Sig Lonergan back in 1985. Now, Sig and I were 2 of the 3 people who started the whole revival of using labyrinths in America. Jeannie Houston was the 3rd one. So that was when I met him, and we were powwowing about sharing knowledge about all sorts of things. He said, there's this sequence, and then he said something about, I didn't come up with this. This was the first time we know that this was written was by a gentleman named an Englishman, Geoffrey Russell, way back in 1948. The year I was born, coincidentally. He wrote a little article in a magazine or journal or something in Glastonbury, England, about this sequence. He didn't make the connection to the chakras. He just said 3, 2, 1, 4, 7, 6, 5, 8. Isn't that interesting? And then, it took decades later for us to do something else about that. And so the year after I met Sig, I've been very involved with, as you said in the introduction, with the geomancers and with the Dowsing Society, American Society of Dowsers, and British Society. And so in 1986, the West Coast Conference, that meets in California, came up with the idea the theme is going to be finding the way, and they asked me to provide an image of a labyrinth as a way of symbolizing that dowsing is a way to finding your way through life. And I said, oh, why don't we do more than just have it on the front page of the program booklet? Why don't I actually put some labyrinths down and let people walk them and experience them? And he says, well, it doesn't have anything to do with dowsing. It'd have to have something to do with dowsing. And I remembered what Sig had told me. He had also said he'd done a little experiment with some people of dowsing their energy fields or auras before and after walking a labyrinth, and finding out that one of the benefits of walking the ancient labyrinth was that their energy fields were expanding 2 to 3 times just from the simple walking of a labyrinth. That, oh, hey, let's do an experiment on that. So this probably was the first, actual data collecting kind of research project on the effects of labyrinths that I ran from 1986 to 89 for 4 years there at UC Santa Cruz for the Dowsers West Coast Conference. So I also took the opportunity to test this theory of the association of the chakras with the circuits. And, having a bit of a scientific background, I wanted to do this as an experiment. I decided not to tell anybody that there could be a possible connection between the chakras and the labyrinths. In fact, I told them almost nothing except we have a labyrinth out there on the ground, go walk it or run it, or, and we're going to have these people observing what you're doing and interviewing you afterwards and finding out what your experiences are. And then we engaged the dowsers with dowsing auras before and afterwards and measuring all of that. It was great fun. So if you've heard of that, that's where that started. And the thing that really fascinated me, again, I had not told anybody, I didn't want them to have any expectations of what was supposed to happen. So I just let them have at it. And as I'm standing here with my clipboard, ready to interview them afterwards, people would stand right at the mouth of the labyrinth and they'd turn around and I'd say, how do I do this? Oh, just walk between the lines. Just stay between the lines and it'll take you into the center. And when you get there, just come back out on the same path. That's because people were thinking it was a rat's maze. They didn't really know what a labyrinth was back in 1986. And so it was great. We had guinea pigs that had no preconceptions of what this was going to be. And people, and then they'd take a few steps and they'd stop and they'd turn around and talk back to me again and say, how long is this going to take? Can I get this done before the lunch? Because we had a little break between the lecture sessions and the lunch or something. Anyway, they would ask all these questions right there at the beginning. And then, and as I'm listening to this, after hearing 100 people say the same thing, can I do this? How do I do it? How long will it take? Am I doing it right? All of that was happening in that first circuit. And I realized, oh, that is all the stuff that is associated with the third chakra, the willpower center. Can I? And then people turn the corner to the next, get into the next circuit. And afterwards, when I interviewed them, they started telling me about, there was this part of the walk where all this sort of sense of lack came up, or all this heaviness, or all these heavy feelings, or I've feelings and thoughts that I don't have enough money, sex, food, time, all that kind of. And I'm realizing I'm hearing them report on the typical second chakra associations with survival and sensation issues. And then they got out to the outermost ring, which is the root chakra, and a lot of people started running and reported about how they really liked that part because they really got embodied. They really got in their physical body on that one. Well, duh, here we are, another association with the chakra system. And on it went. And then the one that really was the most fascinating was they came around the corner from the first to the fourth circuit. And as afterwards, they were telling me the story, all that stuff that was feeling that it was sort of like the dross, the heaviness, the lead, the shadow in my psyche or whatever, all that stuff. It just, at some point in the labyrinth, it just kind of lifted or evaporated, or all that stuff just kind of dissolved. And I asked them to tell me where it was. It was right where this woman is standing. It was right as they were moving from the first to the fourth ring. And I'm going, oh, they're going into the fourth chakra, which is the path of loving yourself, of compassion. And I immediately thought, oh, love your problems to death. Love heals all. It was like, oh my gosh, these people are experiencing this in the labyrinth, and on it went. And I got less information back, less verbalization of their experiences once they went to the seventh and the sixth and the fifth rings. And those are associated with the upper chakras. And it's a little, I still don't know exactly what to make out of that, but my theory is it was just so much deeper or internal or something. They didn't quite have words for it. It was so much more on the intuitive end or something, which is what those upper chakras are associated with typically. Anyway, so there's a sense of the path, and you're coming around the center on the seventh path, and then you move back outwards on the sixth and the fifth. So here's just to review that sort of, this is what I was hearing from people's experiences, that on the third path, what was coming up was, what do I do? How do I do this? How long will it take? All typical willpower, chakra, intention issues. When they moved into the next circuit, the second, it was gut feelings, it was insecurities, it was sense of lack, it was self-doubt. It's all those things that are in the survival and sensation level of consciousness of the second chakra, the generative chakra, creative chakra. And then they move to the outward, to the outermost, the ring, the root chakra, the first ring, running and getting grounded in their body. And then that whole experience with moving into the heart to the fourth path, which is the heart chakra, and having that experience of healing the heavy stuff and the feelings of lack and stuff from before. The seventh, in terms of the consciousness associated with these circuits and these chakras, it's the seventh, the crown chakra. It's top of the whole spinal chakra system, opening to spirit or to the beyond. And then you move outward to the sixth, intuitive. It's the third eye, sort of all of those sort of ESP qualities, clairsentience and inner knowing and flashes of inspiration. And then the fifth is the throat chakra. And that's all about speaking the inspiration you got so that you remember it, voicing what that insight was, and then taking it even further and manifesting it. It often starts with declaring, with saying, let's do this, you know. And then the eighth, because I called it because I just, for some reason, thought, okay, I want to give a number to the center. I'm going to call it 8. In sacred geometry, 8 is the octave. And it means going beyond. It means stepping to another level of consciousness or another dimension. And it's called the transpersonal chakra, and it sits actually outside the body, about a fist distance above the top of your head. And so that's the whole 7 levels of consciousness here, and what we're going to play with, and sort of what this whole thing I'm sharing with you is all about, because I think it's a great, deep, wonderful mystery that will just really expand the benefits if you're using the classic ancient 7-circuit pattern. Having similar issues, and by the end of a couple of years of doing this experiment, I was convinced that there was indeed what Sig Lonergan suggested, that there was a strong association between the 7 circuits of the labyrinth and the 7 chakras and these different functions and abilities, and that the cool thing about it was that you didn't need to know anything about that, and you could still have experiences of, you know, going into these different states associated with the chakras, even if you didn't know anything about it. And I thought that was really, really neat, that we've got an amazing spiritual tool here, that we don't have to tell anybody any of this stuff, and they're going to be likely to experience it just from walking the labyrinth on their own. So where I want to go next is sort of, so that was the big aha, that was the discovery back several decades ago. And after that, my next question was, what the heck is going on here? Why, this was pretty amazing that people were having these kind of experiences. They were having a chakra walk without even being told it was a chakra walk. I had just told me, we have a very empowering tool here, and I want to know more. So I started to try to figure out what was going on, and what was it about this labyrinth that could explain the amazing things that were happening here. So we're going to explore that. And this is your next, the next exercise.
This is Patricia. Before we go on, I think somebody's unmuted that I can't find. Could we have everybody make sure that they go and mute themselves? Because we're getting some background noise.
Patricia, it's the person who is Gail Anderson. Gail, can you mute yourself, please?
Okay, thanks for feel free to jump in whenever we need, little logistical stuff like that. So if you grab your handout, the one that has the three labyrinth images on it, we've already used the first one. So now we're going to use the one in the middle on the right-hand side. And I want to help you explore another fascinating thing here. That is, well, I don't want to give it away. I'm just going to guide you through this, and we'll do it step by step, and you'll have the aha if you've never done this, played this this game before. So I want you to notice the first thing is that I think most of you know that the ancient labyrinth is created by two lines. When you have the seed pattern, there's that cross, and then there's the 4 points. And the line that defines the path goes from one point to another. It connects two of the points, and it connects two other points, right? And here in red, you can see actually which ones. So if you call this the northeast and the southwest, those 2 point dots in the seed pattern are being connected to create the one line. So this is the line that goes vertically through the cross. And in worldwide symbolism, vertical is associated with yang energy, with sort of creative, active kind of energies. And the color red is associated with it. So let's just color that one red. You can start at the crossing, and go one direction until you get to the end of the dot, and then go back and start and go the other direction. Or you could start at one dot. But I find starting at the crossing sort of expresses the symbolism that it's the vertical arm of the cross that we're calling the yang and coloring red. So if you do that, then you will see that. And then the next thing we're going to do is do the other line, but let's just do the vertical one first in red. And this is also one of the great sort of absolute principles of the universe, of polarity, of yin and yang, or positive, negative, or vertical, horizontal. Those are sort of two of the main different ways of expressing this primal principle of vertical and horizontal. So now let's go for the horizontal and the other line, and the cross-cultural association with that is yin energy or receptivity, and blue is commonly associated with it. So let's color this other line blue, and you can start at the horizontal part of the crossing and go off in one direction until you get to a dot, and then go back to the cross and go the other direction until you get to the other dot. And then you will have all of the lines that define the path colored in with yin, blue for yin and red for yang. So the next thing to do, once you have that, once you have the see that this whole pattern is created from just two lines that curve around each other, let's shade in. There is only, I want you to do a little detective search and look for the only path that runs between two of the blue lines. Okay, and when you see that, just shade that whole thing from beginning to end with your green pencil or marker. And while you're doing that, look at your first drawing, look where we put the numbers in, and see which circuit that is, which number is it, and which chakra is that associated with. And probably by now you have figured out that this is that path that you're The circuit that you're coloring in green is the fourth circuit associated with the heart chakra. So here's my version of it, just to double check. You can compare to see if you're on track here. And while you're doing that, if you need more time to color, keep doing that. I'll just talk about the message here, metaphorically, symbolically. In the Chinese Book of Wisdom, the I Ching, the first symbol is, or hexagram, is all yang energy, and the second one is all yin, and it's called the receptive. And there's a whole, you might want to, if you're curious, you might want to go to a copy of the I Ching and read that whole thing, because it will tell, it's really talking about the labyrinth, and particularly this heart path of being a place where we are, it's kind of set up to put us into a receptive state of mind or being, to get into your heart space, get into this receptive thing. And I think that's what was happening with the people in my first experiment, that somehow there's some archetypal energy here of these two blue lines or horizontal lines or something. It seems to set up an energy pattern that you can pick up on, whether it's conscious or unconscious. So when we're in the receptive state of mind, this heart path is helping us get into a receptive state of mind. That's a state where we can let go of expectations, of control. That's part of what helps us get into the present moment, where we're open to all sorts of possibilities. Anything is possible. And when we're more in a state of being rather than a state of doing. So let's do a little more exploring of similar sorts of things. There are two areas that are in between two, that are bordered by two of the red yang lines. So look for those and shade those in red. And then see, I think you'll have a neat discovery there as you realize, particularly once you get both of them shaded, colored in, what's going on there. So check and see if this is what you discovered, what I'm showing now. So it's the beginnings and end of the path are the places where you are walking between two of the yang or active creative lines. The beginnings and endings of things. Isn't that fascinating? So birth and death require, what the labyrinth is telling us, and this is one of the things I love about the labyrinth. The more I explore the symbolism and the geometry and the structure of it, I keep bumping into really archetypal messages, the laws of nature and laws of physics and laws of psychology and stuff. I mean, it's just amazing. So it's telling us that birth and death require yang energy, right? When at the beginning of life, we do a lot of pushing to get down the birth canal to get born, right? And at the end of life, in order to leave the mortal coil, the physical world, we have to will ourselves to let go, to take a leap, to go beyond into the unknown. Those are both requiring this creative yang energy, willpower, setting intentions, exerting physical effort. I just find that fascinating. So just another example of the many universal principles that are embedded in the labyrinth, that you can pull out of it by doing things like what I call the structural analysis, looking at the structure of it and seeing what the symbolism is. So we've got the, so let's do one more drawing. And for this one, let's start over. Let's see, wait a minute, do we need to do that? Yeah, you can just look at this image here, I think. because I'm gonna add something. You're gonna add it on the one you've already done rather than starting a whole new drawing fresh here. So ignore that lower left thing. So this is just really to go back to the heart path, which we shaded green. And notice another thing about it, that it starts on sort of the outside, or in this orientation, the bottom of the crossing, and takes you around until, I'll take my cursor, and takes you around. And by the time you get to the other end of the fourth or heart path, you have stepped over in a way the crossing. And you've gone from what I call the outer labyrinth into the inner sanctum. So the heart path is doing something else really significant. Not only is it running between two receptive yin lines, it is also like a threshold across a portal, taking you a gateway from the outer experience in the lower chakras into the inner sanctum and the upper chakras. So to get a drawing of that, to see that more clearly, you could color the whole third, second, and first circuits with yellow, and then color for the lower chakras in the outer labyrinth, and color everything on the other end of that heart path, the 7, 6, and 5 path with the purple. Okay, and I'll let you do that as I talk more about that. So the heart path is really, really a key piece to this, what's happening when we walk the 7th Circuit Ancient Labyrinth. It's a transition from the outer world to the inner self. Gee, maybe that's why we get into such a inner meditative thing when using this labyrinth. So the heart path location sets up much of the experiences that we've been experiencing these many decades now. And the structure of the path, I mean, I don't think this was dreamed up by humans. I think this was channeled or was, revealed in an altered state to shamans or something. I don't think we could have made up this many amazing fundamental principles. You enter on the third chakra, which is what at the beginnings, you have to use willpower, and we're walking on the path associated with the willpower chakra. It's just uncanny. And a lot of us, we've been doing this for decades, of having these meditations where we set an intention for what insights or we want to get from any particular labyrinth walk. Or we just set an intention to, I'm open to whatever you want to tell me today. And the heart path is very appropriately surrounded by receptive yin energy to assist that opening. So what else can we learn from looking at the heart path? So back in the 80s, as I kept hearing the reports from more and more people of the extraordinary things that were happening, I was still scratching my head. And so I kept going deeper and deeper to try to figure out ways of answering the question, what the heck is going on here? And why is this simple symbol so powerful and empowering? So I started to think of the pathway. I started looking for ways to represent it three-dimensionally. And being a sacred geometer and an architect, of course, that was kind of an easy step to make. It's sort of going to home territory. So one of the first models I made was, I actually did this with ping pong balls that were colored different colors and stacked them up on each other. And so if you notice when you start here, you're going in, right? And then you go around on the third path and you're moving outward to the second and outward to the first. So the first motion is outward. And then from first to fourth, you're moving inward on the fourth to the seventh, and you're almost getting into the center, right? So that was a lot of inward. And then you went outward again from 7 to 6 to 5, and then you went inward again. So I had another drawing that I didn't put up here that was sort of like the sense that the labyrinth, when you're walking it, you were breathing in and out and in and out and in. And that kind of felt to me like a movement in like a spiraling vortex, which we'll get to in I'll show you in a moment here. Oh, it's coming up. Okay. So I made this model first of showing we're starting on the third path. We go to the second and the first, and we're not moving in. So I just sort of made that on my table. And then I nestled the heart chakra when we move up or inward, and I sort of made moving inward, moving up through my model, and put the fourth heart chakra there. And then we kind of have another sort of staying in place or moving outward. So I put the 765 at all one level, and then you move in again to the center. But in doing this, I immediately saw something that I started to recognize, which is that the heart path, as we've discovered from the two-dimensional drawings and colorings, is the center of the whole story. It's really, really significant. And a lot of the effects of the labyrinth overall comes from what's going on with this fourth heart path. So one of the things, so there's the fourth path three-dimensionally. Here it is two-dimensionally, sort of showing the same thing, that it's a threshold. It is carrying us from the lower chakras of 321 to the upper chakras of 765. Okay. And the other thing I recognized, you can also see I sort of made this into a tetrahedron, which is what that is when you actually stack that ball right there on the little dimple above those three. And which is the first three-dimensional object. And so it's a very basic symbol in geometry as well. And the fourth, I also knew that this model of the triangles or the tetrahedron pointing up symbolizes the triangle of heaven, and this one pointing down, of earth, and this one pointing down is the triangle of heaven. And the two-dimensional version of that is one we're all familiar with, the Star of David. And that's what you get once I built this model, I looked from the end up through the model, and this is what you see. So there's my 3, 2, 1 sequence, and the heart chakra in the middle, and you see the Star of David with the symbol of the triangle of heaven and earth. So with that in mind, what happens when we journey through the chakras in this particular order? The 3, 2, 1, 4, 7, 6, 5, 8. So the core of the journey is, and what those models told me, is that the really significant thing is when we're moving from the first circuit, the outermost, to the fourth, crossing the threshold, and to the seventh, wrapping around the center. That is a really significant part. If I go back to this other, you can really see that the main thing that's happening, that's moving us through states of consciousness, is this 147 sequence. So I started to play with another way of representing that in a three-dimensional object. And so I mapped it on a donut or a torus or a spiraling vortex. And I thought, well, when you start the labyrinth, you're starting at the third circuit. You are farthest, in terms of the journey, you are farthest from the center at that point. Not spatially, but in terms of the journey. So this is just a map of the actual journey through the labyrinth. And it is a way of kind of understanding what was going on here. So I started that on the equator, so to speak, of my donut, and went down to go with moving outward to the second and to the first. And that really helped me put together connection between the circuits and the chakras, because now I've got a model that shows the circuits through the labyrinth in this kind of vertical arrangement, just like they are on the spinal chakras. So I've got the root chakra at the base, and then I'm making a leap across the threshold, the crossing up to the fourth and up to the seventh, the crown chakra. So I've got the 1, 4, 7. And when I got to that, I realized, oh my gosh, now I'm in the world of what is called the marriage of, or creating the axis mundi and the marriage of heaven and earth, which is the center of all the mystical traditions, which fortunately I'd been studying for a decade or so. So I recognized that and thought, oh my goodness, the labyrinth is having us walk through the setting up in our consciousness this axis mundi that's the center of all the mystical traditions. That's the core meditation or practice. So what the axis mundi represents is it's like a fire hydrant. It's like a channel of energy between the realm of heaven and the realm of earth. And if you look at this drawing here, this may help you a little bit. This is from Lama Govinda, who was a Westerner who did kind of what I'm doing. He looked at Hinduism through the lens of sacred geometry. And so he's showing the sphere of consciousness called the sphere of heaven, which, by the way, means the infinite realm of pure possibility. It doesn't mean sky. And then the sphere of earth, which doesn't mean dirt and earth, it means the sphere of physical manifestation. And then the sphere of humanity. Okay, so that is, and I colored it in here with the colors of the red, green, purple of the spectrum and the axis mundi, and from the first to the fourth to the 7 chakras and circuits. So all of this is starting to come together now, and I'm realizing we have one of the most, at this point, I'm thinking this 7 circuit labyrinth is the most powerful meditation tool that humanity has ever been given. And I'm becoming, a real advocate for getting people to use this. Another way to think of that, creating an axis mundi as a channel of energy between the infinite and the finite. A simple way of saying that is that you're aligning your small self, your individual self, with the big circle or the universe consciousness. So here's a little more of that. Again, the creating the marriage of heaven and earth is metaphorical language, and heaven means the infinite realm of pure possibility, and earth is referring to the finite, the materialistic realm of manifestation and incarnation. And the term marriage basically means merging or blending or making two things into one. So it's this merging of things that are actually separate, but so it's this paradox of making the separate feel like they're united. Or another way to do that is in a lot of shamanic traditions, they train you how to be in 2 states of consciousness at once. You're in the inner world and the outer world simultaneously. And or you could think of it as the practical manifestation of the laws of nature, the laws of the universe, the lofty ideals, the principles of all the world's religions and spiritual traditions and stuff. So another way to think of the marriage is it's a way to mediate the visible and the invisible, the tangible and the intangible, the graspable and the ungraspable. And this is basically what the labyrinth, taking us through this sequence of going from the first to the fourth to the 7th chakras, the root to the heart to the crown, is there. You can spend decades in doing meditations and trainings to learn how to do this in the mystical traditions, and you can get it in one walk on the labyrinth, which I'm going, wow, this is just really, really an amazing spiritual tool for us. So there's another, if you're ensconced in Christian traditions, Jesus's term, bringing the kingdom of heaven to earth. And I, in taking an Aramaic class, I found out that the word kingdom is a metaphor for a state of consciousness. It's not a king sitting on a throne. It's a state of consciousness that we can all attain. And it refers to living in a non-dualistic or unity consciousness, which in the mystical Christian orders is what's called Christ consciousness. So if all of that sort of is reference points that makes a connection for you, great. And so it enables us to manifest universal principles into the material world, like let there be light and there was light. That's what we're talking about. That power is available to us. And we're kind of I'm seeing the labyrinth as training wheels for learning how to do that, to be co-creators of the creation. So now let's go back to the heart chakra and why we did all those drawing exercises and stuff, because this is the thing that really blows my mind. And I think is even the most powerful message in the whole labyrinth story, which is that if you look at this drawing of the chakras again, and now we've got sort of more details here to orient you. We've got the crown chakra at the top of your head and the root chakra at the base of your spine. And Govinda is showing us some geometry here that I won't go into a whole bunch, but halfway between the crown and root is the heart chakra. And then halfway between the heart and the crown is the throat. And then halfway between crown and throat is the third eye. So there's 3 octaves, 3 leaps of consciousness to higher dimensions available in the chakra system when you understand it geometrically. But the really key thing here that these drawings are showing us is you'll notice the sphere of heaven and the sphere of earth, the infinite realm of pure possibility of the rules of nature and laws of the universe, and the sphere of earth, or the place where all those principles are manifesting. They barely touch each other. They are just tangent, right? They're just rubbing up against each other. And the place where that happens is the heart chakra. Wow. So what that is telling us, the labyrinth is showing us this mystical mystery that only the heart chakra, that state of consciousness, of receptivity, of relaxation, of non-judgment, of compassion, that's the only place where we can merge this heaven consciousness and this earth consciousness. The compassionate heart is the only state of consciousness that can align and unify this infinite and finite realms. And by the way, in the mystical traditions, why is this important? Because they say this is what humanity was created for. Our purpose as a species is to understand all of this. And the labyrinth is providing a way for people to who might never open up or get into a mystical order and can discover this without even knowing they're discovering it. It's just wonderful. So so this is just showing again the heart chakra is halfway between the root and the crown, and it is geometrically in this whole system. It is placed in the only place that can mediate or bridge or create a crossing between the lower and the upper chakras. And in the labyrinth, we are doing that right in the center of the whole process of the path, in the middle of the journey from outside to inside. That's exactly what we're doing. We are moving from the outer labyrinth to the inner, from the lower chakras to the upper, from the sphere of earth to heaven. So one last lovely little discovery that I made in this whole journey in the 80s was that I was again trying to imagine the labyrinth 3-dimensionally, the pathway of the labyrinth, not the labyrinth itself. And I had this image in my head of a slinky toy. And I was pulling it apart, and I was imagining that I had 7 little loops of the slinky toy going, and that my slinky toy, the one that was modeling the labyrinth, each of those loops was a different distance depending on which path it was representing. So for some reason, I drew this initially, and I made the longest path the shortest line on my bar graph. I probably should have done it the other way around, but something really cool happened by this sort of happenstance or mistake, if you will. So anyway, I made the longest the longest path, I made the shortest bar in my bar graph, and the shortest path of the seventh going and wrapping around the center, I made the longest one. And but it really doesn't matter. If I'd done it the other way, this symbol would have just been upside down. The figure, the image here of this going up and down and up would have been, you know, just a reversed image. It would have been the same. So it wouldn't really have changed what's going on. Anyway, I thought I had something really cool. And I kept looking at this bar graph and I'm saying, oh, well, that kind of fizzled out. I don't know what happened. I was doing this at a restaurant and this drawing was on a napkin. And by the end of the meal, the napkin had turned, and this was now, instead of lying on its side like this, it was vertical, and voila, I saw it. What I had just drawn was the Holy Grail. And I had this sense from the people, from the experiences that people were telling me about their experiences in the labyrinth, that really we were awake. The labyrinth was also awakening the Holy Grail, which is the ancient meanings of that is it is the compassionate, judgmental, heart-centered consciousness. That's one of the things the Holy Grail is represented. It's not a, you know, it's not a chalice that was used at the Last Supper. It, you know, it goes way back into ancient mythology, referred to as the womb of creation, the womb of Mother Earth, and this heart-centered consciousness within all of us. And so then that would allow me to make the connections with some of the Arthurian legends that I'd been studying. And I was privileged to find some teachers who carried the ancient version of the Arthurian story, not the sort of medieval romanticized version. There's an old one where he's a geomancer, a philosopher king, called the sacred ruler is my term for it. The word in Gaelic is Arthuri, and you can kind of hear the word Arthur in the Gaelic word Arthuri. That's where it came from, an anglicization of the Arthuri term, which means the high king or sacred ruler. And he was a peacemaker, a philosopher king, an earth lover. He was actually married to the earth goddess, and he was a geomancer, and he was responsible for keeping peace and prosperity among all the people and fertility of the land. And so, you know, it's pretty ancient concept, and a lot of ancient cultures have this same idea of a ruler. It's totally different than, you know, what kings and emperors and dictators and presidents and stuff. So another vision of almost a utopian vision for society. And I was saying, gosh, could the labyrinth be a training ground for training these philosopher kings, sacred rulers of the future? And then if you know where the Holy Grail fits into the Arthurian story, the Grail quest started because everything got all mucked up. It was called the Wasteland. Arthur and the knights and Arthur and Guinevere were, you know, estranged from each other. All the relationships were all messed up. The harmony had been destroyed between the people and the earth. And so the earth stopped giving fruit and vegetables and food and was drying up. It was called the Wasteland. And then the knights, some of the knights had a vision that we need to go on the Grail quest. And mythologically or metaphorically, what they were saying is we've lost our heart and we've lost our way because of that. And we need to find that again. So they go off. And then there's two versions of the story. And the young knight, who's sort of like the fool, innocent person, comes back and tells Arthur, "You've forgotten who you are and what your job is. Your commission, your purpose as Ardri, a sacred ruler, was to live with this oneness between you and Mother Earth. And so he whispers into Arthur's ear, you and the land are one." And that was supposed to be the remedy for the wasteland. Anyway, that's a very short version of the story. So I want to move from that towards sort of putting all this together in the meditations that I have been developing over the last, 4 decades. And as my takeaway for you. So I believe that the invitation of the Seven Chakra path is to activate this holy grail that's within us, to awaken the sacred ruler, the peacemaker archetype, which is in the center of the psyche of every human. It shows up in all sorts of different mythologies. You can go beyond just the Arthurian story to get it. If so, and I'm believing that the power of the potential of this seventh circuit ancient labyrinth, and walking it as a walk through the seven chakras, can facilitate the next step in the evolution of human consciousness, which I believe is to move from fear-based to heart-centered, to move from greed and feeling ourselves separate to states of oneness, and through embracing a living from your heart. And so here is and this is in your handouts. If you have a physical labyrinth to walk, here's what you can do with that. You can, and by the way, so these are going to be a bunch of keywords that you can use to focus your meditative walk. And what I recommend, and when I do this as with an event with a group of people, is I have little flashcards. I have little, I think they're like 6x8 size cards or something. And I put like a single or two-word keyword. So for like and I set it right down as you're entering the mouth of the labyrinth, as you're entering the third path, I'll have the word focus or willing or something like that. Okay, so, and you can, and the next one is feel. What are you feeling? So if you're using this as a problem solving meditation, which is the way this originally came from Sig Lonergan and is in his Labyrinth book. And he was presenting it as a problem solving meditation. I also think of as an insight meditation, a way to get fresh insights about a particular issue or challenge or in your life. Okay, so you start with setting that intention of, okay, I want to focus on yada yada, and so as you're standing at the mouth of the labyrinth, you're saying, what intention am I setting? What am I want to focus on for this journey along the path? Or I am willing to look at such and such. And then when you get in the second path, it's like, pay attention to what you're feeling. What kind of stuff is coming up from the unconscious, from the shadow, from your sense of lack or whatever. It'll tell you a lot about what is blocking you from being empowered and moving forward or solving the problem you're dealing with. And then when you get out to the outermost, root chakra, physical body, notice, pay attention to where this particular issue touches you. How does it enter your life? How does it move you? And then when you move to when you make that magical turn, starting across onto the fourth path and across the threshold from outer to the inner, then just notice or move into that thing of whatever was coming up, that all the things you're feeling bad about yourself, just love them. Just love yourself even in this situation. Love yourself as you are feeling separate. Love yourself as you're feeling angry. Love yourself even though, right? And just embrace and accept yourself. And so I usually put the word love there as I'm entering on the beginning of the fourth path. And then seventh path is ask help. You could put a single word would be pray. Receive insights. I put insight for the single word usually. That's the intuitive sixth or third eye chakra path you're going through. And then you get to the throat chakra, the fifth path. So express is a good single word. Express the insights about whatever you got. And then when you get into the center, it's that, since I stumbled onto calling it the eighth path, it was easy to think of it as that octave leap of consciousness to a higher level. So I think of it as step beyond the problem. What is, get outside of being so focused or troubled on whatever I'm dealing with, and you just take a breather for a moment. And sometimes, you know, after you've been knocking your head against the wall, you take a break, and you know, all the people that study creativity says that's when the aha, that's when the solution comes through. So this is basically based on what Sig Lonergan came up with, but he had not carried it further into what happens as you go from the center back out on the same path. And so I came up with that and added that, and think of the way in as the receptive mode and the way out as the active mode. So I've received all these, hopefully, all these insights on some particular issue. And on my way out, I'm in the center, the place of the transpersonal chakra, of connecting to beyond myself. And I'm just giving thanks for the great beyond. So gratitude is my single keyword for that. And then I come back onto the throat chakra. It's verbalize the insights. I tend to carry a little pad with me when I'm doing this kind of labyrinth walk, because I don't remember the insights. And this is the point that is about remembering when you get to speak it out loud, you know, to help you remember what those insights were before they flit away. And then you come to the third eye, visualizing where your power of visualization, and visualize the outcome or the action you're going to take. And then you come wrapping around the center on the crown chakra, energize it with that spirit power, that sort of infinite, you know, the crown chakra is a multi-petaled lotus. It's like 10,000 petals, which in Buddhism means infinite, uncountable. That's 10,000 is their word for infinite. And then you come back to the heart chakra, open your heart, just spread love, you know, the gratitude for what you've received, let that fill your heart, make the connection with others. Then you go out to the first path. It's time to ground whatever these insights are as you're moving towards emerging from the labyrinth. How do I ground this in my daily life? And then a really important step of the sort of the magic of manifesting things in your life is to take whatever those insights and intuitions were and fill them with your passion, you know, juice them up with all your passion for, I just got this great insight or idea and I'm all charged up and excited about, you know, making it real in my life. And so use that second chakra, that's what that state of consciousness is all about. It's all about passionate energy. And then what's really amazing to me is the third path is where we exit the labyrinth. And I've always thought of that as taking the next step out of the labyrinth, re-entering the world. And when you're doing this kind of meditation, you're coming out with a vision and an action plan. And it's like, okay, I'm ready to move on this. And you take literally your next step and you walk from inside the labyrinth to outside the labyrinth back into the world. So that is that's the whole sequence of the meditation. Oops, let me go back. Yeah. And so what I want to do is lead you on a guided meditation. I'm going to leave this up here. And show you another way to use this if you don't happen to have a labyrinth available. So you can also do this as a sitting meditation. And I've devised a bunch of these, and I'm going to give you one of the simplest ones tonight that it'd be a good place to start with how to use this whole idea of connecting of walking the path through the labyrinth as if we're walking through the chakras and activating these different functions within ourselves as a way to experience the power of this ancient seven circuit labyrinth. So I am going to stop sharing the screen and go back to gallery view, and then we can we'll do the meditation, and then when we come out of this, we'll do a sharing of anybody that wants to share any experiences that happened in it, and then we'll go to from that into question and answers about all the stuff I talked about. So let's use everything I shared with you in this meditation. So get yourself comfortable in your chair and close your eyes and bring your attention to your breathing like we did at the beginning. And I like to start a lot of my meditations by imagining first that you're in your own space. And one of the ways to do that is to imagine that you are sitting inside, or around you is a bubble of energy around your physical body. And you might imagine or sense that this is shaped like an egg with the broad end above your head and the more pointed end down below your feet. Just imagine, or a sphere, or whatever comes to you and feels right to you. Just imagine, pretend, sense, make believe that you have a bubble of energy around you, which will deflect any distraction during the meditation and help facilitate, help you go deeper and deeper into your inner world. So everything starts with breathing, and this is certainly one of the things the Labyrinth teaches us. So we're going to start with the entry path into the Labyrinth, which is the third circuit and the third chakra. So since everything starts with breathing, and this is the third chakra is the breath center and the willpower center, take a deep breath in all the way down into your belly, into your navel, into your breath center. And if you'd like, you can place your hands on your belly and feel your belly rising and falling with each breath that you take in and each breath that you let out. Just feel that rising, gentle rising and falling of your breath, and move your attention inward with your breathing into that space inside your belly, behind your navel, in the area, the space of your third chakra, just slightly in front of your spine at the level of your navel. And move into this space, which is the seat of your willpower. And in this space, you can get in touch with your ability to set intentions, to take action, to make things happen. That's where that state or level of or type of consciousness resides, rests, sits within your body and your energy being, your energy body. And as you are feeling the breath rising and falling in this breath center, in your willpower center, know that you have within you and within that space all the power you need to accomplish whatever you set out to do. Not only does everything start with breathing, it also starts with intention. So sit in your inherent power to make wise decisions and know that you are always making the best decisions you can about the direction you wish to set for your life's purpose. And then when you're ready, move on, move upward or downward into the generative chakra at the level of your genitals, the second circuit, the second chakra, the creative chakra. Sit in your inherent power to create. This is a place where procreation occurs and all other forms of creation. This is where your power to satisfy your needs, your physical, emotional, sexual, or erotic needs. This is the center where you can take care of yourself and others nurturing and nurturing. Know that you have the power right here in your second chakra to create abundance and prosperity and have everything you need. Know that you have the power to open up fully, to receive and take in all that is given to you in this flow of abundance of giving and receiving. And as you breathe in and breathe out, move your attention downward to the base of your spine, to your root chakra, the first circuit in the labyrinth, the outermost. Sit here in your inherent power to fully embody in your physical being, to live in the present moment. Activate your ability to feel grounded by imagining you are sending roots down into the earth from the base of your spine. Use your breath energy to extend your roots deeper and deeper into the earth. Use as many exhales as you need to send the energy down into the earth, towards the center of the earth. Grounding you, which is the function of the root chakra and the outer path on the labyrinth. And when you feel or imagine or pretend or sense that your roots are reaching into the core, to the center of the earth, breathe the energy from the center of the earth back up through your matrix of roots or your taproot or whatever you feel or imagine or sense. And feel this connection as you breathe energy up out of the center of the earth, up to the root of your spine, the base of your spine. And just ask that that movement of energy, that circulation of energy through your roots continues as you now breathe in and draw the energy up from the base of your spine, up along your spine into your heart center. And each time you breathe in, draw in the energy from the center of the earth, all that earth energy up into your heart center. And go inside your chest and sit in your innate ability to give and receive love, to love yourself and all others, to connect with all others in a heartfelt way. Sit in your ability to accept yourself and others just as you are without judgment, and just as others are without judgment. Know that you are filled with compassion, forgiveness, empathy, and sympathy. And bring your attention to those you love the most, and let that energy fill and expand your heart chakra. You may even feel ripples of love and compassion energy moving out from your heart out into the world. On your next inhale and exhale, breathe the energy up through your spine, up to the crown, the top of your head, to your crown chakra, into the state of consciousness that is your ability to connect with all that is beyond yourself, particularly all beyond your egoic self. This is your doorway to universal consciousness, to a state of oneness with all that is. You're yearning to connect with all that is, with universal consciousness. And then on your next exhale, move your energy down just a little bit into your brow, into the space between your eyebrows, into your third eye, or the brow center of the sixth chakra. And feel the space where intuition and insights and flashes of inspiration come to you. This is the seat of consciousness that is your ability to open and receive inspiration from beyond, or from source, or from inner knowing, or from any extrasensory perception like empathy and telepathy and clairaudience and clairvoyance and clairsentience. And then as you exhale, move your energy, your attention down into your throat, into the fifth chakra or throat chakra. And know that this is the place where you are empowered to speak your truth, to express in words and thoughts, to bring ideas into the world. This is your ability to manifest intentions. And then our last movement is up above the head to the transpersonal or eighth chakra. Imagine a space, a sphere, slightly above the head, about a fist height above, making connection beyond your personal self, to unite with all that is, with the divine, with the universe, with universal consciousness, to the great absolute, however you conceive of all that is beyond yourself. And as a way to finish this, just remember or bring your attention again to that movement of energy, where we start with the breath center and move down into the generative center and the base of your spine, the root chakra. And we move up into our hearts and up into our crown chakra at the top of our head, down to our brow center or third eye, and down into our throat. And then expand outward into the great beyond through the transpersonal chakra. And if you wish, you can ask for that circulation of energy to keep moving like that, or you can ask for that to come to a pause, to a rest. And bring your attention back to your breathing in your belly. Maybe bringing your hands, resting on your belly and feeling your belly rising and falling as you breathe in and out. And bringing your attention to the weight of your body sitting on the chair or the seat. Feel the weight of your feet and your legs on the floor. And when you're ready, come back out of the Labyrinth Chakra experience. Slowly and gently opening your eyes, getting used to the brighter light in your room. And as we move towards sharing experiences, I will just share a little bit of some of the other ways I've used that. It's that meditation is sort of like a 1,000,001 customizing kit. There's a lot of things you can add to it. And one of the things I would recommend or suggest is sort of your next step after you maybe repeat this 3 times or 9 times or something until you sort of, learn it by heart. Next thing you can do is go through each of those states of consciousness, and use it to focus, like I was talking about with the walking meditation, on, I would like some insights on a current issue that I am dealing with. And then when you get to each of those, what is my creative powers say about this situation? How can I be grounded in this situation? Just ask for insights based on those 8 different abilities or powers within us. So with that, let's, I think the moderator is going to recognize people, I believe, who raise their hands physically or with the electronic thing. It's down there in the menu there somewhere.
Patricia, this is Sandra, and in the chat there is a question about how any of this might translate to other labyrinth designs. And I know, Richard, you've spent a lot of time on this 7th circuit. So do you have any thoughts about any of the other designs, particularly likely the Charts?
Yeah, that's very easy to answer. This only works with the ancient or classic 7th circuit labyrinth. And for me, it's the great gift of that particular labyrinth design, and why I sort of from the get-go became an advocate of the 7th circuit design. Once I saw this, I said, "Oh my goodness, this is one of the most powerful spiritual tools I've ever encountered." And so it only works on this one because this one has the connection of the 7 circuits to the 7 chakras. But then, when I did the test, the experiment, I found out that wasn't an intellectual connection. That was a real physical, experiential thing that people were having happen to them long before I even told them that there was chakras, potential for connection to chakras. So the proof is in the pudding. I put the labyrinths on the ground and people walked it, and they started telling me that they were having experiences of this that related to the chakras.
So, Richard, I first learned to walk the labyrinth in the 80s with Jean Houston. And she actually taught the Chart labyrinth as having the 4 quadrants, and then having 7 turns in each quadrant is the 7 chakras, so that you would have so that in each quadrant of the Chart labyrinth there are 7 turns that she associated with the 7 chakras. Have you ever spent any time with that, or does that make any sense to you?
Well, the sequence isn't the same, so it doesn't. It's not just that there's 7 chakras. It's this 3, 2, 1, 4, 7, 6, 5, 8 is just an amazing gift to us. Of why I spent all that time going through. Gosh, here's all the different ways of looking. Why this is such an empowering meditation, and I believe central to us becoming what humanity was created to become.
It was a very powerful meditation. Doing it, I thank you for that. There were some other questions about the. Let me see if I can find it. About the lines when you were doing the spiral. About why some lines were short and some lines were longer, and and how you came up with that.
Yeah, so basically, I was looking at the path, and I was looking at that sequence, the 3, 2, 1, 4, 7, 6, 5, 8, and I was trying to. I knew that the labyrinth was offering insights. I had to move beyond just looking at the labyrinth design itself. I needed to. The inspiration was I needed to look at the journey, the sequence of the movement, right? And so basically all of those diagrams were ways of showing the dynamics and the relationships between the moving from 3 to 2 to 1 to 4, et cetera, et cetera. And which you don't really, the labyrinth itself doesn't really show you that, and doesn't show you the axis mundi or any of that stuff. So I had to go to these other models. And so that one that showed the Holy Grail is basically, I was saying, okay, and I said I sort of did it in a weird way, was that I said, okay, when you're in the first path, that path is the longest path. It's the most number of feet, the most number of steps to walk the first path. And the seventh path is the least number. So I just simply did a bar graph where I put 7 different links. And then I looked at the path sequence and said, okay, and then I made 7 the longest one, and I made 1 the shortest, and all the other are sort of like one more unit, right? So there's 1/7, 2/7, 3/7, 4/7. I just made a scale basically on a bar graph, like on graph paper, and I made these different lines, and then I put them in the right order to be the 3, 2, 1, 4, 7, 6, 8. And then that little curve thing showed up. And when I turned it vertically, I saw that it was the Holy Grail. And that the other thing I had to do was, instead of putting it on a bar graph and having all the lines going off on one side, I put the lines all going off from a center point, right? And so the common, or the bar graph part, the 0 point was at the center. And then I just made each line equidistant from that. And then it was totally the Holy Grail. I didn't have to imagine it. It was just right there staring at me. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you. It does. Thank you very much. We have a question from Jane. Do you want to unmute yourself, Jane, and ask your question?
Oh, hi. Thank you. Actually, I was more interested to hear about the spiraling vortex and have that one explained again, because I did not understand how that mapped to the turns and movement, actual turns and physical movement in the labyrinth.
So if you imagine a donut.
Yeah.
All right. So you've got a donut, and I can't quite do it with my hands, but a donut that's a lay person's name for a spiraling vortex. You got a hole in the donut, it's sort of like this, right?
Oh, okay. All right.
Right. And so the spiraling vortex is the fancy physics term for a donut. And so when I started mapping the labyrinth path on it, the equator of the donut was where I started the journey, because you're farthest from the center, and that's what's happening when you're standing at the mouth of the labyrinth. You're at the beginning of the journey. You're not physically, spatially the farthest from the center, but in terms of the time that it's going to take to do the walk, you're the farthest from the center. Mm-hmm. And so I made that. I thought, okay, I'm going to make that the equator, where I'm going around the sphere. And then, because you're moving outward and away from the center, going 3, 2, 1, I thought, okay, I'll translate going away to going down. And that also was sort of influenced by knowing that I was going down from the third chakra to the second to the first. I was going down through the lower chakra. So I made that the lower half of the donut. And then the 147, which was the big aha that was coming through, was that I was going from the root to the heart to the crown, right up the spine. And that was going right up through the hole of the donut. And that went, wow, this totally makes sense. And then you get up to the seventh path and you move away from the center again, 765. So we're going down through the chakras from crown to third eye to throat. So I'm going to move down again. And now I'm moving on the outside. I've come up through the hole of the donut and now I'm moving out around the outside.
I don't understand why you chose that point to move up through the hole.
Well, when you're at the root chakra, the only place you can go is up. You're at the bottom of the whole spinal chakra system, at the first chakra.
Okay.
And the only way is to go up. And so in a spiraling vortex, if I do it with my finger here, you go around the outside. Let me back up a little. You go around the outside, down. You get to the lowest point, you go up, and you're just making a little umbilical cord. And then you go out again to get to the equator around the center again. So it's this kind of motion that you're going up through the center. You get as high as you can. The only thing you can do, staying within a spherical shape, is moving outward. And when you move out as far away from the center as you can possibly get, the only thing you can do is come back in and back down. So you're making this shape of the sphere. When you get down to the very bottom, it's going the same direction. I can't go back out in reverse direction. I got to go inside. And so that takes you up 147, and that's the axis mundi. And that's when it was like, wow, the bells and whistles. Now I know that this is the teaching of the mystical traditions in the Labyrinth Path. And I thought,
And it just happens to be the inside and outside.
yeah.
So thank you very much. That's very helpful.
So you have that polarity of inside and outside. What's within is without. What is without is within. Another mystical teaching.
And it happens that 4, 7, and 6 are inside. Well, never mind. I'll stop there.
Yeah, keep playing with it. You'll get the answer. Yeah, 147 is on the inside. And it's sort of the core of the journey.
One of our members from the guild pointed out that the address for Trinity Cathedral is 147 19th Avenue.
Wow.
For Trinity Cathedral. Any other questions? We have about 15 minutes. If there are other questions, statements, sharings.
I'd still love to hear any sharings from the meditation also.
I have a question. May I ask a question?
I can't see you. Okay, hi Mercedes. Yeah.
It's Mercedes. I can see her. All right.
My question is, you've related this, the Star of David, the Holy Grail, and I wondered if you found any overlay with like Islam, the other Abrahamic religion.
I don't think I've made any ahas there. And that's partly because other than a bit of exposure to Sufi poets and a little bit of, I've done a big study on the creation story, the Genesis story, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism all basically have the same idea of the worlds created in 7. Unfortunately, the word was mistranslated and they said 7 days, but the actual word in Hebrew is intervals, which is a term from geometry. So that's a whole nother class that I love teaching, that is about unpacking by using sacred geometry. There's an image, there's a mandala that's being described in the Genesis creation story, if you know how to read the language and if you have a proper translation. So the word interval is 6 intervals, means a circle cut into 6 segments by the radius of the circle. And it creates what's called the flower of life, but I prefer it to call the flower of creation mandala. Anyway, that's as close, but that doesn't really make a connection between the labyrinth and Islam. But they do have, you know, particularly in Sufism, which is the mystical tradition, you know, they also have that story where they're working on the 147. You know, the whirling dervishes are connecting the root chakra to the heart chakra to the crown chakra as they're whirling around.
Okay,
Right?
thank you.
Yeah.
There
Thank
is a,
you. We have one more person that has a question. I can't see your name.
oh,
My name is Nancy, and I don't know how to write it out on there. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I think that's me. It's not a question. It's just a comment. And it's pretty ignorant comment. I probably shouldn't even try to make it, but I did write in my notes while I was listening a connection to Islam. And the connection was, in Islam, there is, for everything, there is an opposite. And that when you merge the two opposites together, you can't have one without acknowledging the other. And then the point is to live in the middle in a non-dualistic live non-dualistically. And I just made that notion, or wrote that down in my notes while I was listening, thinking about the merging of the heaven and the earth, and the outer to the inner journey. And you have to have both the inner and the outer. So anyway, that was just some jots that I made during that time, and might be worth looking at some more.
Yeah, thank you. No, that was not an ignorant statement. You're going deep. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that is one of those universal principles. I sort of was throwing out that a lot of this is, without going into details, that everything I found in the labyrinth is an expression of some law of nature or law of physics or law of the psyche or spirituality, you know, and that, so we actually started today with that, of looking at the yin and yang of the two lines. And so right there, we had these two polarities that we're dealing with. And then with the axis mundi, you're dealing with the merging of the polarities, which in that system is represented as heaven and earth, or infinite and finite manifestation. And so, you know, there are so many wonderful different ways of saying the same thing. The simplest way is, one of the simplest ways is the one becomes two and two-ness becomes oneness. And that's a way of describing the whole mystical path, or the whole, you know, why humanity was created. We were one with everything. We now are living in these physical bodies with this sense we can convince ourselves that we're separate individuals. And so the whole goal of the spiritual traditions is to realize that we're not separate. The senses trick us into thinking that we're separate and individual, but the truth is we're all one. And physics in the last several decades has been stumbling onto one example after another. Every atom in your body existed in the sun, you know, at the Big Bang. You know, there's nothing new has been created. It just keeps recycling, you know. So that is one of the ways of understanding oneness. Physics calls the universe a singularity. That's what existed before the Big Bang. Then the Big Bang created a plurality or a diversity, the two-ness, which is represented by polarity or two-ness. So you've really hit on something very, very fundamental about the existence in the physical world, and the mystery for human consciousness to discover is that there is oneness in the two-ness. So thank you for that. That was you got me excited.
we do have a question from Gloriana that's a little bit back to a different part of your talk. Where can she read about the Arthurian story that you spoke about? The other Arthur story.
You can get a little beginning of that, I have never written my book on that, but I do have a booklet on my website, and all the booklets are now digitized. So they're just, you use PayPal and you just download it, and you can either print it or on paper, or you can just keep it as a electronic document. But there's a whole, the best I have to give you some beginnings of that is a booklet called The Five Voices. And there's a longer title to it. But if you just remember the five voices, it goes into those Celtic and pre-Celtic mysteries that I received from my shamanic teachers, the Celtic geomancy teachers.
And that's on your that's in your store on your website.
Yeah, so it's just my name, richardfeatheranderson.com.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a whole bunch of videos there. There are some videos that go, you can read the descriptions and see, that go a little bit deeper into this labyrinth story, but then there's all sorts of, there's a page, if you're curious about sort of the overview of what my site covers, there's a page called the 12 Branches of Geomancy that will go into the way I divide the pie into 12 different pieces, 12 different subjects, and so geomancy and feng shui and sacred geometry and labyrinths and earth energies and yada yada.
You know, I looked at your store, and there's just an amazing amount of information there that you can download and read, and then there are videos. I'd really encourage everyone to go. I was very impressed with the breadth and depth of the information that was there.
Yeah, I was raised with
the name of the website and the direct link.
Yeah. I was I sort of grew up with the curse or the blessing of being raised by generalists who, their thought of how to raise a kid was to expose them to as many things as they could think of. And when they ran out of stuff, they exposed me to other people that knew more stuff. So that's why the website has so many different subjects on it.
That's great.
Well, there was a question back earlier, and I'm hoping Mercedes may have picked up by now that when we were coloring, you just made it simple and had us do the inner part one color of purple. But actually in your example, you have some shades of blue. And so there was a little confusion on where does the blue color go? But I think my understanding is that those were chakra colors. The blue, when you colored in the blue part.
Huh. The only time we used the blue color, and in my drawings, it's the felt tip marker, was for coloring the line. The horizontal line at the crossing was blue, but the whole inside, the paths on the inner part was all purple, and on the outer, the inner sanctum was all purple, and the outer part was all yellow.
Thank you.
And then the in between, of course, was the green heart path. That was the whole point of connecting the two, the inner and the outer. So overall, really the whole message of this is we're here to learn how to be in our hearts all the time. And what better time to have this message? I mean, the world is demonstrating the opposite of that right now, where more and more people are going into anger and fear and separation and hatred. And that's all the opposite of the heart chakra consciousness. And so the way out of this is basically, that's kind of what it is. Almost all the conferences I'm going to these days, this is the talk I'm giving, because I think this is what humanity needs to hear right now to get us out of the mess that we're in.
So we're just about at time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell people a little bit about the upcoming events. And then maybe, Richard, you could do a closing meditation and Scott asked us all to keep Heidi and her dog in our thoughts as we do the closing meditation. I did to get a text from her, and her dog is in critical condition and is really not doing well. So that as we close tonight, we'll think of Heidi. But I do want to let you know, and Jan, you can start to put up the in chat. All of this will be there. Our next monthly walk, Sandra Walden's going to do on September 20th at 7 p.m. Our next speakers bureau, Lisa Gidlow Moriarty is going to talk about unique applications of the labyrinth. That's actually not going to be a Thursday night. It's going to be a Saturday morning, 9 a.m., October 2nd. So get that change in your brain. It's going to be October 2nd on a Saturday morning. You pre-register at the cathedral. I think Jan's putting those up. And then we talked about your website, Richard, which is a wonderful website. And I do want people to know that we're the cathedral most likely is going to open for in-person walks on September 27th. There will now be a requirement to show to document your vaccination status in coming into the cathedral for a walk. So that'll come out in all the emails about it. So everybody who's planning to come, please be aware of that. Okay. So with all of that, I think that we can do our closing meditation. It's just a short one, and keep Heidi and Charlie in our minds.
Okay. Well, you can probably guess where I'm going to go. Bring your attention into your heart center. Breathe into your heart center. Close your eyes if you wish. Move your attention inward. Now fill your heart with the memory of those you love or experiences that fill you with love. Let your heart fill with love as you bring those memories or those people to mind, or Heidi's dog, or anyone else. And let your heart fill with that love energy. And as it fills, perhaps you can feel or imagine your heart expanding and expanding and expanding outward, as if you were sending ripples of love and compassion from your heart center out into the world, almost like dropping a pebble of consciousness into the pond of existence and imagining the ripples going out spherically in 3 dimensions, as if you have ripples going out as a spherical globe in all directions, touching all souls, all people, and particularly touching all those who are crying for love. There are those who are filled with love, and there are those who are crying for love. Let our ministry be to those who are crying for love right now, and sending those ripples of divine sourced love and compassion out to all, so they may come back to themselves and be whole and healed. And thank you to the Labyrinth Guild. It's such a pleasure to be with you and to bless you in sharing and passing on all of this to anyone that you feel called to do.